The ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. It was a small vessel, painted white with blue lines along its sides. The words United Earth Diplomatic Corps were written on its hull in 12 different languages. Inside the ship, Ambassador Una Park stood by the window and looked at the massive station ahead. The Galactic Council station was the largest structure Una had ever seen. It stretched across the void like a metal flower with 1,000 petals. Lights blinked from every surface. Ships of all sizes moved around it like insects around a hive. This was the heart of galactic civilization. This was where every major species came to discuss trade, war, and peace. And today, humanity would finally have a voice here. Una took a deep breath and adjusted her uniform. She was 43 years old, with short black hair and calm eyes. She had spent 20 years as a diplomat, traveling to dozens of alien worlds. She had learned 7 non-human languages. She had studied the customs and cultures of species that breathed methane, species that lived in oceans of liquid metal, and species that existed as clouds of electromagnetic energy. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. Her assistant, a young man named Jun Kim, walked up beside her. He was nervous. She could see it in the way his hands kept moving. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "we are receiving docking instructions. The Council has assigned us Bay 47. Una nodded. "Good. Tell the pilot to follow their directions exactly. We cannot afford any mistakes today." Jun hurried away to deliver the message. Una continued to stare at the station. Humanity had worked for 50 years to reach this moment. When humans first discovered faster-than-light travel, they had been excited. They thought they would find friends among the stars. Instead, they found a galaxy that did not want them. The Galactic Council controlled everything. They decided which species could travel freely, which species could trade, and which species had rights. When humanity tried to make contact, the Council had ignored them. When humanity tried to send diplomats, the Council had turned them away. But humanity did not give up. They kept trying, kept sending messages, kept asking for a chance to speak. Finally, after 5 decades of requests, the Council had agreed to let one human representative address them. That representative was Una. The ship entered the docking bay and landed softly. Una gathered her documents and walked to the exit. Jun followed close behind, carrying additional materials. The door opened, and Una stepped onto the station. The air smelled strange. It was a mix of chemicals she did not recognize. The gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth. The light had an orange tint that made everything look like it was on fire. A group of aliens waited for them. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were completely black, and they wore golden robes that swept the floor. Una recognized them as Kellans, the dominant species in the Council. "Ambassador Una Park," one of them said. His voice was cold and flat. "I am Councillor Vorn. I will escort you to the Grand Chamber." Una bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Councillor. Humanity is grateful for this opportunity." Vorn did not respond. He simply turned and began walking. Una followed, with Jun close behind. They walked through long corridors filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no solid form at all. They all stopped to stare at the humans. Una heard whispers in languages she did not understand. She saw expressions that might have been curiosity, disgust, or fear. She kept her head high and her steps steady. The Grand Chamber was enormous. It was a circular room with seats rising up on all sides like a stadium. Thousands of aliens sat in those seats, representing hundreds of different species. At the center of the room was a raised platform with a single podium dot at the top of the chamber. In the largest seat of all sat High Speaker Vorath. Yuna had studied everything she could about Vorath. He was the leader of the Kellan Empire and the most powerful being in the Galactic Council. He had ruled for over 300 years. He believed that the galaxy belonged to the strong and that weak species existed only to serve. He looked at Yuna the way a person might look at an insect. "The human may approach," Vorath said. His voice echoed through the chamber. Yuna walked to the podium. She placed her documents down and looked up at the thousands of faces watching her. Her heart was beating fast, but her hands were steady. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began. "My name is Yuna Park, and I speak for the people of Earth. We come to you today not as conquerors or rivals, but as neighbors. We want nothing more than to join the galactic community, to trade peacefully, to share knowledge, and to learn from the many great civilizations represented here." She paused and let her words settle. "Humanity is young. We know this. We have only traveled the stars for a short time. But we believe that every species, no matter how young or small, has something to offer. We bring art, music, literature, and science. We bring curiosity and determination. We bring the hope that the galaxy can be a place of cooperation instead of conflict." Yuna looked directly at Vorath. "We ask only for a chance. Give us the opportunity to prove ourselves, and we will be the most loyal friends you have ever known." She stopped speaking and waited. The chamber was silent. Then Vorath began to laugh. It was a cold, cruel sound that filled the entire room. Other aliens joined in, their strange voices creating a chorus of mockery. Yuna stood still, her face showing no emotion. Vorath raised one of his 4 hands, and the laughter stopped. "Little human," he said, "do you know what you are? You are animals. You come from a small, unremarkable planet in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. You eat the flesh of other creatures. You fight among yourselves like wild beasts. You destroy your own world with pollution and war." He leaned forward in his seat. "And you dare to come here and ask to be our equals?" Yuna did not look away. "We are not perfect, High Speaker, but we are trying to be better. That is all any species can do." Vorath's eyes narrowed. "You do not understand your place, human. The galaxy has no room for vermin like you. Your species should have stayed on your little planet and died there like the animals you are." "We came in peace," Yuna said quietly. "We have done nothing to threaten you." "Your existence is a threat," Vorath replied. "Your ambition is a threat. Your very presence in this chamber is an insult to every civilized species." He stood up from his seat. "The Council has discussed your request. We have decided that humanity will never be accepted into the galactic community. Furthermore, we have decided that an example must be made. Other primitive species must learn what happens when they reach beyond their place." Yuna felt a cold feeling in her stomach. "What do you mean?" Vorath smiled. It was the smile of a predator. "You will be executed, Ambassador. Here, in front of the entire galaxy. Your death will be broadcast to every world. Humanity will learn its place, or humanity will be destroyed." Guards moved forward and grabbed Yuna's arms. June shouted and tried to run to her, but more guards blocked his path. "No!" June screamed. "You cannot do this." She came under diplomatic protection. "Diplomatic protection is for civilized species," Vorath said. "Humans are not civilized." Yuna did not struggle. She looked at June with calm eyes. "June," she said, "tell Earth what happened here. Tell them everything." Tears ran down June's face. "Ambassador, please, promise me," Yuna said. "I promise," June whispered. The guards dragged Yuna to the center of the chamber. They forced her to her knees. Vorath walked down from his seat and stood before her, holding a long blade that glowed with blue energy. "Any last words, human?" he asked. Yuna looked up at him. Her voice was steady. "You are making a mistake," she said. "Humanity came to you with open hands. We offered friendship. We offered peace. You could have had allies who would have stood beside you forever." She took a breath. "Instead, you chose this. And one day, you will understand what that choice cost you." Vorath laughed again. Brave words from a dead woman. He raised the blade. The execution was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the blade came down. They watched as Ambassador Una Park, the first human to address the Galactic Council, died on her knees in the Grand Chamber, on Earth. The footage arrived 6 hours later. Admiral Jin Kang was in his office at United Earth Command when his screen flickered. He looked up and saw the face of a communications officer. "Sir," the officer said. His voice was shaking. "You need to see this." The footage played. Jin watched in silence. He watched Una speak with dignity and courage. He watched the council laugh at her. He watched Vorath deliver his judgment. He watched the blade fall. When the footage ended, Jin sat very still. His hands were not shaking from fear. They were shaking from something much more dangerous. He picked up his communicator and contacted Earth's Supreme Council. The 5 leaders of humanity appeared on his screen, their faces pale with shock. "You have all seen it," Jin said. It was not a question. "Yes," said Supreme Chancellor Myra-san. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Jin, what do we do?" Jin stood up from his chair. "We do what they have forced us to do," he said. "Activate Protocol Omega." The Supreme Council members looked at each other. Protocol Omega was humanity's final contingency. It was a plan created decades ago, when humans first learned that the galaxy might be hostile. It was a plan that no one ever wanted to use. "Are you certain?" Chancellor San asked. "They killed our ambassador," Jin said. "They broadcast her exec. The day after the execution, Earth went silent. Every radio signal stopped. Every communication channel closed. Every ship that had been traveling between human colonies turned around and went home. The human stations in orbit around Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn sealed their airlocks and shut off their transmitters. From the outside, it looked like humanity had died. High Speaker Vorath sat in his private chamber and watched the reports with satisfaction. His advisors stood around him, their gray faces showing expressions of triumph. "The humans have surrendered," said Councillor Vorn. "They have accepted their defeat." Vorath nodded slowly. "As I expected. They are a weak species. They talk of peace and friendship because they know they cannot fight. One death was enough to break them." "Should we send forces to occupy their worlds?" Vorn asked. Vorath waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "There is no hurry. Let them suffer in their silence for a while. Let them understand their helplessness. When we are ready, we will take everything they have." He stood and walked to his window. The stars stretched out before him, countless points of light representing worlds under his control. "The galaxy has learned an important lesson today," he said. "They have learned what happens when inferior beings forget their place. This will keep the peace for centuries to come." His advisors bowed and agreed with his wisdom. Across council space, the news spread quickly. The humans were finished. The primitive species from the Forgotten Planet had been crushed before they could even begin. It was exactly what everyone had expected. Some species felt relief. Humanity had been an unknown, and unknowns were dangerous. Now that threat was gone, some species felt pity. The humans had seemed earnest in their desire for peace. Ambassador Una Park had spoken well. But the galaxy was not a kind place, and good intentions meant nothing without power. A few species felt something else. A few species looked at the silent human worlds and felt a small, cold fear in their hearts. They remembered the stories they had heard about humans. Stories about their wars, their determination, their refusal to surrender. They wondered if the silence meant what Vara thought it meant, or if it meant something else entirely. Deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, something was happening. The asteroids here were unremarkable. They were chunks of rock and ice, floating in the darkness far from any sun. No one visited this place. No one had any reason to. That was exactly why humanity had chosen it. Fleet. Commander Hana Lee stood on the bridge of the battleship Vengeance and watched as the first ships began to wake up. They had been sleeping for years, hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids. Their systems powered down to avoid detection. Now they were coming back to life. Status report, Hana said. Her first officer, Commander Tae-yoon, checked his display. 37 ships active so far. Another 100 coming online within the hour. Full fleet activation will be complete in 4 days. Hana nodded. Good. What about the weapon systems? All plasma cannons are charging. Missile bays are loaded. The new gravity bombs are ready for deployment. Hana allowed herself a small smile. The gravity bombs were humanity's secret weapon. They created artificial black holes that lasted for only a few seconds. But those few seconds were enough to tear apart anything nearby. The Galactic Council had never seen anything like them. They would soon. Commander Lee, a communications officer, called out. Incoming message from Admiral Jin. Priority 1. Put it through. Admiral Jin Kang's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp and focused. Commander Lee, he said. What is your status? The fleet is awakening, Admiral. We will be ready to move in 4 days. Jin nodded. Good. We have received intelligence from our remaining contacts in Council space. They believe we have surrendered. They are already making plans to divide our territory among themselves. Let them plan, Hana said. It will make our job easier if they are not expecting us. Jin almost smiled. Indeed, I am sending you the final target list. Every military installation, every shipyard, every command center. They all need to be destroyed in the first wave. If we give them time to organize, they will be harder to defeat. Understood, Admiral. Jin's expression became more serious. Hana, I need you to understand something. This will not be a limited war. This will not be a series of careful strikes designed to bring them to the negotiating table. The Council has made their intentions clear. They want to destroy us. We must destroy them first. Hana met his eyes. I understand, Admiral. I watched the footage of Ambassador Park's execution. I will not forget it. None of us will forget it, Jin said quietly. Jin out. The screen went dark. Hana turned to face her crew. They were all watching her, waiting for her words. They were men and women who had trained for years for a war they hoped would never come. Now it had come, and they were ready. You all know why we are here, Hana said. You all saw what the Council did to our ambassador. They killed a woman who came to them with nothing but words of peace. They laughed as they did it. They called us animals. She walked across the bridge, looking at each crew member in turn. But they made a mistake. They thought we would be afraid. They thought we would hide and wait for them to come and finish us. They do not understand what humans are. She stopped at the center of the bridge. We are not animals. We are not cowards. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us with ice ages, plagues, and disasters, and we survived everything it threw at us. We built civilizations in deserts and jungles and frozen wastelands. We conquered our planet, and then we reached for the stars. Her voice grew harder. The Council thinks they know what war is. They fight with their rules and their strategies and their calculations. They have never faced an enemy who fights with rage and grief and love. They have never faced humans. She raised her fist. They wanted monsters. Let us show them what humanity becomes when you take everything from us." The crew responded with a roar of agreement. In the following days, the fleet continued to wake. More and more ships emerged from their hiding places. Destroyers and cruisers, carriers and battleships. 3,000 warships in total, built in secret over 40 years. The galaxy had no idea they existed. While the fleet prepared, other preparations were happening on Earth and the human colonies. Factories that had been producing civilian goods switched to military production. Workers who had never held weapons learned to fight. Children were evacuated to underground shelters deep beneath the surface. The message spread through every human community: we are going to war. Prepare yourselves. But from the outside, nothing changed. The silence continued. No signals, no ships, no signs of life. The Galactic Council grew more confident with each passing day. On the council station, Vorath gave speeches about the glorious victory over the human menace. He accepted congratulations from ambassadors and lords. He made plans for expanding the Kellan Empire into human territory. He had no idea what was coming. 30 days after the execution, the fleet was ready. Hana stood on the bridge of the Vengeance and looked at the tactical display. 3,000 green dots represented human ships. They filled the screen, organized into attack groups and support formations. Admiral Jin's voice came through the speakers. "All ships. This is Admiral Jin Kang. In a few hours, we will begin the largest military operation in human history. We will strike at the heart of the Galactic Council. We will show them that humanity is not prey to be hunted." He paused. "I will not lie to you. Many of us will die. The enemy is powerful, and they have more ships than we do. But we have something they do not have. We have a reason to fight that goes beyond territory or resources. We fight for our families, our children, our future." Another pause. "I think of Ambassador Una Park often. I think of how she stood before the council and spoke of peace and cooperation. I think of how she died with dignity, without fear. She believed in humanity. She believed we were better than the galaxy thought." Jin's voice hardened. "We will prove her right. We will show the galaxy that humans do not break. We do not surrender. And we do not forgive those who harm us." Hannah felt her heart beating faster. "All ships, prepare for jump," Jin commanded. "We move in 1 hour." The crew of the Vengeance moved with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years. Every person knew their job and did it without hesitation. Hana walked through the ship, checking on her people. She stopped in the engine room, where a young technician named Sue was working on the jump drive. "How are we looking?" Hana asked. Sue wiped sweat from his forehead. "Drive is fully charged, Commander. We can jump whenever you give the order." "Good. Are you ready for this, Sue?" The young man looked at her. His eyes were serious. "I watched the execution, Commander. My grandmother came from a small village in Korea. She used to tell me stories about our ancestors, about how they fought against invaders who tried to take our land. She said that Koreans never surrender, no matter how powerful the enemy." He straightened his back. "The Council thinks they are the invaders now. They think they can take our home and kill our people. They are wrong. My grandmother would want me to fight. So that is what I will do." Hannah put a hand on his shoulder. "Your grandmother would be proud of you." She continued her walk through the ship, hearing similar stuff. The attack came without warning. In the first hour, humanity destroyed 47 Council military outposts. They struck from jump space, appearing suddenly in systems that had known peace for centuries. The Kellan defenders had no time to react. By the time they understood what was happening, their stations were already burning. Commander Tae-yoon led the assault on the Kellan homeworld's orbital defenses. His ship, the Storm, was a fast destroyer designed for hit-and-run attacks. It moved through space like a predator, silent and deadly. Target acquired, his weapons officer reported. Orbital Defense Platform 7, shields at full strength. Tay studied the platform on his display. It was a massive structure, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Under normal circumstances, attacking it would be suicide. But humanity was not fighting under normal circumstances. Prepare gravity bombs, Tay ordered. His crew worked quickly. The gravity bombs were small devices, no larger than a person's head. But they contained technology that the Galactic Council could not imagine. When activated, they created a tiny black hole that existed for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds was enough. Bombs ready. The weapons officer. Confirmed. Fire. The Storm launched 4 gravity bombs at the orbital platform. They moved slowly at first, drifting through space like harmless debris. Then they activated. The first black hole appeared at the center of the platform. Metal screamed as it was pulled toward the impossible gravity. Walls collapsed. Bulkheads crumpled. Weapons that could destroy battleships were crushed like paper. The second black hole took out the power core. The third and fourth destroyed the remaining structure dot in 17 seconds. Orbital Defense Platform 7 was gone. Target eliminated, the weapons officer reported. His voice was calm, professional. Moving to next target. Across the system, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships appeared, fired their weapons, and disappeared before the Kellans could respond. It was not a battle. It was an execution. On the Kellan homeworld, High Speaker Vorath received reports of the attacks in his throne room. Each report was worse than the last. Outpost 9 destroyed. Shipyard 7 is under attack. Requesting reinforcements. We have lost contact with the orbital defense network. Vorath's 4 hands gripped the arms of his throne. His gray face was twisted with confusion and rage. How is this possible? He demanded. The humans have no military. They have no warships. Where are these attacks coming from? His generals exchanged nervous glances. None of them had answers. High Speaker, one general said carefully. Perhaps the humans were not as weak as we believed. Impossible. Vorath roared. We have studied them for decades. They are primitives. They fight among themselves like savages. They cannot possibly have technology that matches our own. Another report came in. High Speaker, the second fleet has been destroyed. All ships lost. No survivors. Vorath stared at the messenger with disbelief. The second fleet had contained over 200 warships, commanded by his best admiral. It had been destroyed in less than an hour. Send the third fleet, he ordered. Send the fourth fleet. Send everything we have. Find these human ships and destroy them. The orders went out. Across Kellan space, fleets began to move. Hundreds of warships accelerated toward the locations of the human attacks, but the humans were already gone, on the bridge of the Vengeance. Fleet Commander Hanali watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The first phase of the operation was complete. The Council's outer defenses had been shattered. Their response fleets were chasing shadows in empty systems. Report from all attack groups, Tay said. Phase 1 complete. Minimal casualties. The Council is sending their fleets to the wrong locations. Hannah nodded. As expected. They are using traditional tactics. They think we will stay and fight for territory. They do not understand what we are doing. What are we doing, Commander? Tay asked. Hannah looked at him. We are not trying to conquer them. We are not trying to negotiate. We are doing exactly what Admiral Jin ordered. We are erasing them. She turned back to the display. Begin Phase 2. Target their communication networks. I want the Council blind and deaf. The human fleet moved again. This time, They struck at relay stations and communication satellites. They cut the lines that connected council worlds to each other. One by one, the systems of council space went dark. On the Kellan homeworld, Vareth watched in horror as his empire went silent. "We have lost contact with the outer systems," an officer reported. "We have lost contact with the fleet headquarters. We have lost contact with our allies. Restore communications." Voreth screamed, "I must know what is happening." But there was no way to restore what had been destroyed. The human attacks had been too precise, too thorough. Every backup system, every emergency relay, every secondary network had been targeted and eliminated. For the first time in 300 years, the Kellan Empire was alone, across council space. Other species watched the chaos with growing terror. The Vornan Collective had been allies of the Kellans for centuries. They had laughed when Ambassador Park was executed. They had applauded Vorath's speech about human inferiority. Now, human ships appeared above their colonies. "This is the United Earth Fleet," a cold voice announced over all frequencies. "You have two choices. Surrender immediately and withdraw all military forces from your systems, or face destruction. You have 1 hour to decide." The Vornan leaders gathered in emergency session. Some argued for fighting. Some argued for calling the Kellans for help. But the Kellans were not answering their calls. No one was answering their calls. The hour passed. The Vornan did not surrender. When the deadline expired, human ships opened fire. They did not target military installations. They targeted everything: power plants, water treatment facilities, transportation networks. Anything that kept Vornan society functioning. Within a day, the Vornan homeworld was in chaos. Refugees fled to the countryside. Government authority collapsed. The species that had laughed at humanity's ambassador now begged for mercy. Mercy did not come. The same pattern repeated across council space. One species after another received the same ultimatum. Some surrendered immediately. They were allowed to live, though their military power was completely destroyed. Those who refused learned what human vengeance looked like on Earth. Admiral Jin Kang monitored the war from his command center. Reports flowed in constantly, each one bringing news of another victory. The speed and efficiency of the human advance was beyond anything he had hoped for, but he took no pleasure in it. "Admiral," one of his officers said, "we are receiving messages from several council species. They want to negotiate." Jin shook his head. "We do not negotiate with species that supported the execution of our ambassador. Tell them our terms remain the same: unconditional surrender or total destruction." "Yes, Admiral. Also, we have confirmed the location of High Speaker Vareth. He is still on the council station." Jin felt something cold settle in his chest. He had been waiting for this moment. "Prepare my flagship," he said. "I am going to the council station personally." His officers exchanged glances. "Admiral, that is extremely dangerous. The station is still heavily defended." "I do not care," Jin said. "Voreth murdered Yuna in that station." He stood over her body and smiled. "I will not allow someone else to bring him justice. I will do it myself." He stood and put on his uniform jacket. "The Third Fleet will accompany me. We jump in 6 hours." On the Vengeance, Hana Lee received news of the Admiral's plan. "He's going after Vareth personally," Tay said. "That seems unwise." Hannah shook her head. "It is necessary. The Admiral knew Yuna well. They worked together for 20 years. Her death broke something inside him. He needs to finish this himself, or he will never heal." "And what about us?" "We continue the campaign. The Kellan homeworld is next. Their planetary defenses are weakened but still dangerous. We need to clear the way for the ground forces." Tay nodded and began issuing orders. The war continued. On the Kellan homeworld, chaos had taken hold. The population had always believed they were the supreme species in the galaxy. They had always been told that no enemy could threaten them. Now, human ships filled their skies, and there was nothing they could do. Vorath refused to accept reality. He issued orders to fleets that no longer existed. He demanded updates from systems that could not answer. He screamed at his generals, accusing them of incompetence and cowardice. Where are the reinforcements? He demanded. Where is the alliance? Where are our allies? One brave general finally told him the truth. High Speaker, there are no reinforcements. The alliance has collapsed. Our allies are surrendering to the humans or hiding in their home systems. We are alone. Vorath stared at him. Alone? Impossible. We are the Kellan Empire. We have ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. We cannot be defeated by these. These animals. They are not animals, High Speaker, the general said quietly. They are warriors. And they are winning. Vorath raised his hand to strike the general. Then he lowered it. For the first time, fear appeared in his black eyes. What do they want? He asked. What will make them stop? The general shook his head. They want your head, High Speaker. They want vengeance for their ambassador. Nothing less will satisfy them. Vorath sank back into his throne. The weight of his situation finally began to crush him. He had thought killing one human diplomat would be a simple demonstration of power. He had not imagined this. He had not imagined that humanity could. The Council Station's defenses were strong. They had been designed to withstand attacks from entire enemy fleets. They had never been tested in a real battle, but the engineers who built them believed they were unbreakable. They were wrong. Admiral Jin Kong's fleet surrounded the station like wolves around wounded prey. Human ships fired in perfect coordination, their weapons striking the same points on the station's shields again and again. Each had weakened the barriers. Each strike brought the defenders closer to destruction. Inside the station, chaos ruled. Kellan soldiers ran through the corridors, trying to reach their posts. Civilians screamed and fled toward escape pods. Emergency alarms blared without stopping. The lights flickered as power systems struggled to keep up with the damage. High Speaker Vorath had retreated to the deepest part of the station, a reinforced bunker that was supposed to be impenetrable. He sat on a smaller throne, watching reports from the battle on multiple screens. Every report was bad. Defensive batteries 3 through 7 are destroyed. Shield generators are failing. The humans have breached the outer hull. They are sending boarding parties. Vorath felt something he had not felt in 300 years. He felt afraid. Send more soldiers to repel the boarders, he ordered. Use gas traps, anything. They cannot be allowed to reach me. His generals obeyed, but they knew it was hopeless. The humans were not fighting like any enemy the Kellans had faced before. They did not care about losses. They did not retreat when they took damage. They pushed forward with a fury that seemed almost religious. On the Vengeance, Admiral Jin watched the battle unfold. His face was calm, but inside, his heart was burning with cold fire. Report, he said. Shields are down in sectors 4 through 9. His tactical officer reported. Our boarding parties are making progress. Ground forces estimate they will reach the command center in 40 minutes. Not fast enough, Jin said. I am going in personally. Prepare a shuttle. His officers protested. Admiral, that is suicide. The station is still dangerous. I did not ask for opinions, Jin replied. Prepare the shuttle. 20 minutes later, Jin's shuttle landed in a breached section of the station. He stepped out wearing combat armor, a plasma rifle in his hands. Behind him, a squad of elite soldiers followed. The corridors of the station were filled with debris and bodies. The fighting had been intense. Kellen's soldiers had defended every intersection, every doorway, every room. They had fought bravely, but bravery was not enough against human rage. Jin moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency. When enemies appeared, he shot them without hesitation. When obstacles blocked his path, his squad cleared them. Nothing slowed him down. They encountered a group of Kellen's soldiers guarding a main junction. The soldiers had built barricades and set up heavy weapons. Under normal circumstances, breaking through would have required careful planning and significant casualties. Jin did not care about normal circumstances. Grenades, he ordered. His squad threw multiple grenades over the barricades. Explosions echoed through the corridor. Before the smoke cleared, Jin was already charging forward, firing as he ran. The Kellen soldiers were dead before they understood what was happening. Move, Jin commanded. They pushed deeper into the station. In his bunker, Vorath watched Jin's progress on his screens. The human admiral was cutting through his defenders like they were made of paper. It seemed impossible. One human, leading a small group, should have been stopped by the thousands of soldiers defending the station, but the soldiers were dying, and Jin was not slowing down. "Prepare the escape ship," Vorath said to his personal guard. "We will leave through the emergency tunnel." The guards hesitated. "Aye, Speaker. The tunnel leads to the secondary bay. Human ships are patrolling that area. Then we will take our chances," Vorath snapped. "I will not wait here to be executed like some common criminal." He stood and walked toward the hidden door at the back of the bunker. His guards followed, their weapons ready. They had not gone far when they heard footsteps behind them. Vorath turned. At the end of the corridor, illuminated by emergency lights, stood Admiral Jin Kang. His armor was covered in blood. His rifle was still smoking. His eyes were cold and hard, like stones at the bottom of a frozen river. "Going somewhere, High Speaker?" Jin asked. Vorath's guards raised their weapons. Jin shot them before they could fire. 4 shots, 4 bodies. They fell to the ground without a sound. Now only Vorath remained. The High Speaker tried to run. Jin did not shoot him. He walked forward at a steady pace, letting Vorath feel the terror of being hunted. Vorath stumbled and fell. His golden robes tangled around his legs. He looked up at Jin with wide, frightened eyes. "Wait," he gasped. "We can negotiate. I will give you anything. Territory, resources, technology. Name your price." Jin stopped walking. He looked down at the creature that had murdered Unipark. "You want to negotiate?" he said. His voice was terribly calm. "You, who laughed as you killed an unarmed woman? You, who called humanity vermin. You want to make a deal?" Vorath nodded desperately. Yes, anything. I was wrong about your species. I see that now. Let me make it right. I can help you. I can give you the galaxy." Jin shook his head slowly. "I do not want the galaxy. I want one thing only." "What? What do you want?" Jin reached down and grabbed Vorath by his robes, pulling him up so they were face to face. "I want you to understand," Jin said. "I want you to know, in your final moments, that everything you believed was wrong. Humans are not weak. We are not primitive. We are not animals." He dropped Vorath and stepped back. "We are the most dangerous species this galaxy has ever seen. We gave you a chance for peace. You chose war. Now you will pay the price." Vorath tried to speak, but Jin was not finished. "I want you to think about Ambassador Park. I want you to remember how she stood before you and spoke of friendship. I want you to remember how she died with dignity while you laughed." Jin's voice hardened. "She was worth 1,000 of you. She was worth your entire empire. And you killed her for entertainment?" He raised his rifle. "Do you have any last words, High Speaker? Yuna asked you the same question before you murdered her. It seems only fair that I return the courtesy." Vorath trembled. His whole body was shaking. The power and arrogance that had defined him for 300 years was gone. He was just a frightened creature waiting to die. "Please," he whispered. "Have mercy." Jin thought about that word. Mercy. It was a word Yuna had believed in. She had thought that mercy could change the galaxy, could build bridges between species, could create a future of cooperation and understanding. She had been wrong, or perhaps she had been right, and the galaxy simply was not ready for her vision. Either way, Jin knew what he had to do. "Mercy is wasted on those who have none," he said. He pulled the trigger. When the shot echoed away, High Speaker Vorath lay dead on the floor of his own station. The ruler of the Kellan Empire, the leader of the Galactic Council, the being who had thought himself the most powerful creature in the galaxy, was gone. Jin stood over the body for a long moment. He did not feel satisfaction. He did not feel joy. He felt only a deep, hollow emptiness. "It is done, Yuna," he whispered. "I wish it had brought you back." But it did not. Nothing can bring you back. He activated his communicator. "This is Admiral Jin. Vorath is dead. Secure the station." Across the station, human forces moved to complete their victory. The remaining Kellan soldiers surrendered or fled. The civilians were allowed to evacuate. The battle was over, but the war was not finished. Jin walked to the Grand Chamber, the room where Yuna had died. It was empty now, the seats that had held thousands of mocking aliens silent and dark. Blood stained the floor where the execution had taken place. Jin stood in the center of the room and looked around. "All channels," he said into his communicator. "Broadcast this message across the galaxy." The communication systems activated. Every remaining world in Council space received the transmission. Jin's face appeared on billions of screens. "People of the galaxy," he said. "I am Admiral Jin Kang of the United Earth Fleet. I am standing in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, the place where your leaders murdered our ambassador and laughed about it." He paused. "High Speaker Vorath is dead. The Council is dissolved. The Kellan Empire is destroyed. The war is almost over." His expression did not change. "But I have a message for every species that watched our ambassador die. Every species that applauded. Every species that thought humanity would accept such treatment without response." He leaned toward the camera. "We came to you with open hands. We offered friendship and peace. You rejected us. You humiliated us. You killed our people and called us animals." His voice dropped lower. "We will not seek revenge on those who surrendered. We will not enslave your populations or destroy your worlds without cause. But we will never forget what happened here. And if any species ever threatens humanity again, if any being ever harms a human and thinks there will be no consequences, remember this moment." He straightened. "Remember what happened to the Kellan Empire. Remember what happened to everyone who stood against us. Remember that humans do not forgive attacks on our own." He looked directly into the camera. "Welcome to the new galactic order. Humanity is watching." 6 months after the death of High Speaker Vorath, the galaxy looked very different. The Galactic Council no longer existed. Its station still floated in space, but it had been transformed. The chamber where ambassadors once laughed at humanity now served as a memorial museum. A statue of Ambassador Yuna Park stood at its center. Carved from white marble imported from Earth, she was depicted standing tall, her hands extended in a gesture of welcome. The inscription at the base of the statue read, "She came in peace." Remember her. Remember what you chose instead. Every day, aliens from dozens of species came to see the statue. They came to pay respects, to apologize, to try to understand what had happened and why. Many wept when they read the inscription. Others stood in silence, their strange faces showing emotions that had no human names, on the former Kellan homeworld. UN administrators oversaw the rebuilding of society. The Kellan Empire had been completely dismantled. Its military was destroyed. Its leaders were dead or imprisoned. Its people were learning, for the first time in 1,000 years, that they were not the rulers of the galaxy, that they were learning humility. Admiral Jin Kang returned to Earth as a hero. Parades were held in his honor. Songs were written about his deeds. Children played games where they pretended to be brave soldiers in his fleet. Jin accepted none of it with joy. He spent his days in a small house near the ocean, far from the celebrations. He walked on the beach at dawn and watched the waves crash against the shore. He read books. He tended a small garden, and every evening, he looked at a photograph of Unipark that sat on his desk. One day, Chancellor Myra San came to visit him. "Admiral," she said, sitting across from him in his modest living room, "the war is over. The galaxy is at peace. Why do you hide here instead of taking your rightful place in history?" Jin looked at her with tired eyes. "What place is that? The man who killed millions? The commander who destroyed an empire? I did what had to be done, Chancellor, but I do not wish to celebrate it." "You saved humanity," San said. "You avenged Ambassador Park. You ensured that no one will ever threaten our species again. I know." Jin turned to look out the window. "And I would do it again if I had to. But there is no glory in what we did. There is only necessity and grief." He picked up the photograph of Yuna. She believed in peace. She truly believed that species could learn to live together, to respect each other, to build something beautiful. She died for that belief. He set the photograph down. "I wonder sometimes if she would be proud of what we did, or if she would be horrified that her death was used as justification for so much destruction." Chancellor San was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. "I think she would understand. She was not naive, Admiral. She knew the risks when she went to the Council. She knew what the Kellans were capable of. But she went anyway, because she believed trying for peace was worth any personal cost. She stood. Perhaps the best way to honor her memory is not to grieve forever, but to build the peace she wanted. The galaxy is ready for change. The old order is gone. We have a chance to create something new, something better." Jin considered her words. For the first time in months, something like hope flickered in his eyes. "Perhaps you are right," he said. "Perhaps that is what Yuna would want." In the following years, humanity did something remarkable. They did not become the new tyrants of the galaxy. They did not enslave the species they had defeated or strip their worlds of resources. Instead, they offered something unprecedented, a new form of galactic government based on equality and mutual respect. The United Galactic Assembly was created, with its headquarters on a new space station built near Earth. Every species, no matter how small or weak, was given an equal voice. Decisions were made by consensus, not by force. Some species were suspicious at first. They could not believe that humans, who had shown such terrifying power, would share authority willingly. But humanity had learned something from Unipark's sacrifice. They had learned that true strength was not about domination. It was about creating a galaxy where no ambassador would ever be executed for coming in peace. Fleet Commander Hannah Lee became the first human representative to the Assembly. She had changed in the years since the war. The fierce warrior who had led the attack on Kellan space was still there. But she had found room for something else as well. She found room for hope. On the first day of the Assembly's opening session, Hannah stood at the podium and looked out at the representatives of 100 species. Some had been enemies. Some had been neutral. A few had been secret allies who had helped humanity during the dark days of the war. Now they were all equal partners in a new experiment. "Friends," Hannah began, "we gather here not as conquerors and conquered, but as species who share a galaxy and a future. The past cannot be changed. The wounds of war will take generations to heal, but we can choose what happens next. She paused, remembering her fallen comrades, remembering the battles, remembering the cost. Humanity did not seek this war. We came to the old council asking for nothing more than a chance to join the galactic community. We were rejected. Our ambassador was murdered. We responded as we had to respond to protect our species and our future. Her voice softened. But Ambassador Una Park did not die so that humanity could rule the galaxy through fear. She died because she believed in something greater. She believed that different species could find common ground. She believed that the universe was big enough for all of us. Hannah looked at each section of the assembly in turn. We are here to prove she was right. In this assembly, every voice matters. Every species has worth. The strong do not prey on the weak. The powerful do not mock the primitive. She raised her hand. This is our promise to the galaxy. And this is our promise to Una, wherever she may be. We will build the peace she dreamed of. We will create a future worthy of her sacrifice. The assembly applauded. It was a strange sound, made up of clapping and clicking and humming and dozens of other noises from dozens of different species. But it was a sound of hope. After the session, Hannah walked through the new station until she found a quiet observation deck. She stood by the window and looked out at the stars. So many stars. So many worlds. So many species, all trying to find their place in a universe that did not care about any of them. Taeyun found her there an hour later. He was no longer a commander. He served as her advisor now, helping her navigate the complex politics of the assembly. The first session went well, he said. The other species seemed willing to give this a chance. Hannah nodded. They are afraid. They saw what humanity can do when we are pushed too far. They do not want to risk making us angry again. Is that a bad thing? Hannah considered the question. It is not ideal. I would prefer that they trust us. But fear will do for now. Over time, if we are fair and just, fear will turn into trust. That is my hope. Tay stood beside her, looking at the same stars. Do you think she would approve? He asked. Hannah knew who he meant without asking. They all thought about Una. They all wondered what she would think of the galaxy her death had created. I think she would have mixed feelings, Hannah said honestly. She would be proud that we are building something new. She would be sad about how many had to die to get here. She would probably tell me that I am doing everything wrong and should be more patient with the other species. She smiled slightly, but I think deep down she would be glad that humanity survived, that Earth is safe, that the children of our species can look at the stars without fear. She placed her hand on the window, as if reaching for those distant lights. We did what we had to do. We became monsters because the galaxy gave us no choice. But we do not have to stay monsters. We can be something better. We can be what Una believed we were. Tay nodded. And what is that? Hannah thought about the question for a long time before answering. We are humans. We love fiercely. We grieve deeply. We forgive slowly, if at all. We protect our own with everything we have. We are kind to those who are kind to us, and terrible to those who hurt us. She turned to face Tay. But above all, we hope. Even when hope seems foolish. Even when the universe gives us every reason to despair. We hope that tomorrow will be better than today. We hope that our children will live in a better world. We hope that our species will find its place among the stars. She looked back at the window. That is what Una believed. That is what she died for. And that is what we will spend the rest of our lives trying to create. The stars continued to shine, indifferent to the hopes and fears of the small creatures who looked at them. But those small creatures had changed the galaxy. They had proven that underestimating humanity was the worst mistake any species could make, and across every world, in every language, a new phrase had entered the vocabulary of fear and respect. Never harm a human. It was whispered by parents to their children. It was written in the laws of every species. It was remembered in the nightmares of those who had seen human warships descend on their worlds. The galaxy had learned its lesson. And in the memorial museum that had once been the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, the statue of Ambassador Una Park smiled gently at all who came to pay their respects. She had come in peace. Now, at last, peace had come.